Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to John Dudley Speaks. I'm your host, Count Dracula. Today's episode of John's Perspective is a double feature. I also have my review of the Black Keys Ohio Players up on the channel now. Check it out. Spearheaded by frontman Ezra Koenig, New York City indie rock band Vampire Weekend made waves on the indie circuit after their self-produced, self-titled album was released in 2008. Hailed today as one of the best records of the 2000s, its strong world beat and Afropop inspirations melding extremely well with Ezra's modern lyrical themes, as well as the band's restrained yet skillfully executed instrumentation. Their 2010 follow-up, Contra, incorporated elements of ska and dancehall, adding catchy, peppy tracks to their repertoire that had a bit of a slicker sheen than their debut. A lot changed for Vampire Weekend in 2013 when the band released what many consider to be their magnum opus, Modern Vampires of the City, a magnificent evolution in the band's sound, graduating from their world beat foundations to a more mature, lyrical, and sonic tone. Father of the Bride, the band's first album without Rostam as a core member, found Vampire Weekend far from missing a beat, even though it is essentially an Ezra Koenig solo project. Though not their best body of work, it's still one of the best alternative albums of 2019, with its summery aesthetics complementing Ezra's introspective songwriting and more direct approach to structure. It's been another long gap this time around since their last album, so it's easy to think that Ezra, Chris Thompson, and Chris Baio will continue to evolve their sound. Yet on Only God Was Above Us, they surprise us once again, delivering an all-killer, no-filler record that signifies an intense balance between the old and the new. If I could give more than a 10 here, I would, because this is one of the best sounding alternative records I've ever heard. The production credits on Only God Was Above Us, including Ariel, Ezra, Rostam, and drummer Chris Thompson, would make you think that we were going to get a sense of familiarity instead of innovation, which is fine. But holy shit, these guys go so hard, and I am so glad that they did. With a heavy, heady, shockingly overwhelming corrosion embedded into the instrumentation, the musical passages, and the approach to embellishments, this album's mosaic of sounds hauntingly paints a picture of a very specific form of chaos, leading off with Ice Cream Piano, buzzed out feedback that hums in the background of the trickling keys, beautifully crescendos into the giddied up drum patterns, cascading into a symphonic release. Classical meets the band where they left off on Contra, the bouncy indie flavors meshing expertly with a vacillation between whining guitar tones and slick guitar licks, and that's carried onto the familiar victory lap of Prep School Gangsters, which feels ripped off of the self-titled album, but the rawer feel and the dingier aesthetic allow it to feel more nuanced and grown. Everything regarding atmosphere on this project is simultaneously euphoric and devastating. Capricorn is a perfect example of this. Its building groove and ornate keys matching the energy of Modern Vampires, but with a hint of further maturity and wistfulness. The up-tempo guitar jams on this one, like Gen X Cops, also find a way to communicate the themes through sounds and distortions, boasting illuminative instrumentation that's equally aggressive and jaded. The trip-hop vibes of Mary Boone are also exhilarating, the vocal phasing of Ezra's verses coming off totally earned, balancing the traditional tones with experimentation so skillfully. I can't say enough good things about the production on this record, as it might be the best set of instrumental panache that the band has ever put to a recording. Fuck the World are the opening lines spoken by Ezra on this record. It really serves as a stunning tone setter for the world that we're about to be immersed in for the next 47 minutes. Ezra's one-liners are refined and targeted to fit a very specific feeling, yet somehow still feel extremely relatable on a macro level. Like on Gen X Cops, where he says, "Each generation makes its own apology." A line packed with so much subtext that we can glean meaning from it in various contexts. And that's just a microcosm of Ezra's astuteness on this album. Mary Boone tells a brilliant story about connection and elevation in one's art through shared experiences. But despite that, the ultimate endgame is built around proprietary gain and status over artistic integrity. Its summation in the line, "We always wanted money, now the money's not the same," is bleak and cynical, but it's also grounded in a brutal reality. Ezra asks very dense philosophical questions on this record, just like he did on Modern Vampires. But the difference here is that rather than the growth and change being impalpable and theoretical, it feels like what Ezra has feared has actualized in full force. Because of that, the lyricism is fairly dark and devoid of the same kind of hopefulness that would crack through the other Vampire Weekend albums, reinforcing the pummeling, unforgiving feeling of change, something that we hear a ton about on classical. Korn also plays on this in a suitably minimal and maximal subtext, equating one's dread of eventual personal hardship to society's eventual malfunction. And for a band that's always delighted in the cheerfully obscure, it's really amazing seeing Ezra mine these depths so bravely and tactically. So much of this record feels like it's cut live, and that is testament to the trio's dedication to matching the sonic aesthetic. But in order to do that, there needs to be musical dexterity on display, and boy is there on this album. Ezra's ethereal guitar licks on Pravda are wonderfully ostentatious. Chris Baio's staccato bass line on Capricorn adds a stunning textural backdrop, and Chris Thompson's loose drumming style across many of the tracks, especially on the sprawling classical, are excitingly lively but still in keeping with Ezra's blending of tones. The way the band clicks on Gen X Cops, Prep School Gangsters, and Mary Boone is to die for, as they remind us of the allure that they had in 2008. But an ever so slight tweaking of the formulas show us that they, like their audience, have grown up. Although there are moments where Vampire Weekend approach territory that they've covered before, none of it feels inessential. If there was potential that was untapped before, they exhausted by the end of this record, using tracks like Connect and Hope to spotlight their ability to be versatile. Ezra gives as much to the instrumentation as he does to the vocals here, with the guitars, pianos, and organs all flourishing with a DIY quality that the band has lacked since their early days. His whispered vocals with sudden bursts of falsettos are heavenly, matching the sonic vibe once more. Yet there's so much more beneath the surface level of his performance on this record, packing in a ton of heart, ethos, and conviction. It's clear that he and the band are giving their all, and it shows in every single musical passage. There's really not one moment that I would change on this album, as it slips from track to track in a very flexible fashion. Sure, The Surfer has elements that need to build to reach its climax, so the pacing has a minor lag, yet again, I wouldn't change how it fits the overall flow of the record. Hope clocks in at nearly 8 minutes, and while it doesn't need to be that long, I think it earns that epic runtime, and it closes the record out on a victorious, if not ambiguous note. With just 10 songs, there's no room for missteps, and Ezra, Chris Thompson, Chris Baio, Ariel, and Rostam all put their best foot forward to synthesize the most charming and elusive facets of Vampire Weekend's sonic and thematic blueprint, and because of that, it makes the listening experience unpredictable, visceral, diverse, and incredibly vital. The great thing about Vampire Weekend rankings is that you could shift around all of the albums from self-titled to now, and you wouldn't be wrong in any slot that you put them in. And that doesn't change with Only God Was Above Us, which is one of the most honest and genuine pieces of art that the band has created since their inception. Truly will be one of the best records of this year, no doubt, and we're only in Q2, which is just awesome for music as a whole. But that's just my perspective. If you're a Vampire Weekend fan, you're gonna adore this album. And if you adore amazing music that reckons with our past, present, and future in a very authentic, holistic way, all while taking wild swings that you wouldn't think that the band that did A-Punk is capable of, you're going to love this album. Alright, that's all I got. Bye!